Hello, my name is Jessica Doherty, and I am the ESOL Endorsement Program Coordinator at Western Oregon University. And I've created this screencast to share with you the responsibilities of a clinical teacher who is supporting a WOU ESOL teacher candidate during their practicum experience. First, I'd like to thank you so much for your collaboration with us. We are grateful that you are interested in supporting our teacher candidates and are eager to help them develop professionally so they can serve ESOL and or bilingual students in the future. So the first way you can support your ESOL teacher candidate is through helping them prepare for their practicum project. They will be creating some lesson plans and a unit for this practicum project. And so in order to do that successfully, it would be ideal if you meet weekly to discuss aspects of ESOL teaching. It's great for the teacher candidate to spend time with an ESOL clinical teacher who shares with them some think alouds, some modeling of lesson planning, developing assessments, etc. Now, many of you will be working with teacher candidates who are in your classroom full-time for both their regular clinical experience and the ESOL endorsement. Some of you may just have a teacher candidate coming in to complete a 90-hour ESOL endorsement practicum because their clinical experience placement doesn't fit the requirements, or because they're just adding this on after they already have their teaching license. In any case, the weekly communication is ideal and very helpful. In addition, if you could guide your teacher candidate, as I mentioned, in planning a unit using the ESOL lesson plan template, that would be fantastic. You can find this template in TK20, and all ESOL clinical teachers will receive a link to TK20, which is where our forms are housed, forms including resources and observation forms and tools. So each lesson will include sheltered strategies for content area teaching, and then they should also include language instruction by infusing language functions, language forms, sentence frames, and those types of tools that systematically teach English alongside sheltered content. In addition, we want to aid the teacher candidate in creating appropriate pre- and post assessments for their content standards. This will all be included in the practicum project. It would also be fantastic if you can facilitate the development of tools that can be used to assess the language standards. So if a student is teaching a function such as sequencing in their math lesson, we would obviously be assessing the math through this pre and post assessment, but we'd also like to assess the sequencing function or the sentence frame used. And we can simply create a checklist with the EL students listed, and then find a system that works for the teacher candidate, such as met, not met, progressing, or some sort of system that allows the students to look at the progress their students are making toward the language standards and then adjust their future instruction. Again, it's always wonderful if you can provide regular opportunities for the ESOL teacher candidate to plan with you so they can see and understand the planning process. And I will quickly take you here to see what the ESOL lesson plan template looks like. And it looks like I did not open it properly, so if you give me just a second. This is the ESOL lesson plan template, and as you can see, it focuses on content area standards and ELP standards along with language functions, language forms taught through sentence frames, a very heavy focus on prerequisite knowledge and funds of knowledge, along with supporting academic language, language modalities, and differentiation. Of course, we include a section for materials and then a procedure that helps students learn how to scaffold both the content area and the language instruction. So students can follow this process that they should be pretty familiar with because they've been using this in their Gen Ed coursework and also in their ESOL coursework. We do like to have our students really think about and focus on the research and theory behind their instructional choices. And of course, any facilitation of development of assessment tools for content and language are greatly appreciated, as this section here covers that thoroughly. And then a reflection piece for students to reflect on their actual instruction. The next step in supporting, oh, you know what, actually I'm going to go back briefly to the practicum project guidelines. And so those are right here. The ESOL, the WOU ESOL supervisor will be grading the ESOL Practicum project in TK20, but these are the guidelines for the project that the ESOL teacher candidate will have and that you will also help guide them through. And so this shows you here that the teacher candidate will be developing a unit with lessons in the ESOL lesson plan template, and then they will assess this unit, and you can see the assessment piece that we just discussed. And of course, they will then reflect on the entire unit. At the beginning, they will start by describing their classroom setting, and all of this culminates in their final ESOL Practicum project. Both teacher candidates and clinical teachers can look at this rubric for further direction on the development of the ESOL Practicum project. Again, these are the scoring rubrics that the ESOL WOU supervisor will use to score the Practicum project. So moving on, the other big piece of this are observations. And so it would be great if you can conduct informal observations throughout the term in order to offer regular feedback to the teacher candidate in regards to their ESOL teaching. But most specifically, it is important that you complete 2 formal observations using the observation forms in TK20. Passing scores are 3s and 4s, and it would be great if you can follow up with a debriefing session after each observation where you will start by asking the teacher candidate to share some things they felt went well in regards to ESOL instruction and some areas that they would like to develop. And then you can follow that up again with some positives, some things you see that are done consistently, and then offer some suggestions for 2 to 3 goals and resources to support those goals for future teaching. In addition, the WOU ESOL supervisor that is assigned to your teacher candidate will also conduct 2 formal observations. And so quickly, I'd like to show you those observation forms. So this is the observation form. And you will see again that there is a continuum here of 1 to 6, a 3 and 4. Those are the passing scores that students would need to receive in order to complete the practicum successfully. And a 3 would be, you'll see further down, some really detailed language in the scoring rubric about what a 3 looks like and what a 4 looks like. But a quick summary is that a 3 is something you see the students are displaying and exhibiting, but not consistently. They're still developing this skill. Whereas a 4 is something that the students are doing very, very consistently and have a firm grasp upon. So the sections in the observation forms are planning for instruction. And as you see, several of our areas have some suggestions for what this particular section would look like. So for integrating language content and skills that English learners need to succeed in academic tasks, they could be using functions, sentence frames, language forms, translanguaging and cross-linguistic strategies, etc. The teacher candidate does not need to be using every single one of these strategies or ideas. These are just suggestions, and you can check those off that you see the student teacher displaying. They do not need to meet all of those in order to get a passing score in that area. After the planning section, we move into sheltering and implementing instruction. And then we move into, a little further down, into evaluating, excuse me, I went too far, evaluating the performance of our English learners or emergent bilinguals in both content and language. And then we focus on classroom climate and professional behaviors. Again, the scoring rubrics are below to guide you in the observations. The WOU ESOL supervisor will be using the same observation forms, and you will use the final scores, you will use the 4 observations to create final scores for the final summative meeting form. So at the end of the term, the teacher candidate, along with you, the clinical teacher, and the WOU ESOL supervisor will meet to go over all the 4 completed observations. Again, you will use an average of those 4 observations to give final scores on the summative form. And this meeting will look something like this. The teacher candidate will come prepared to share 1 to 2 areas in which they met the standards for each section of the form. So 1 to 2 standards they met in planning, sheltering instruction, etc. After the TC discusses their self-assessment, the clinical teacher and WOU ESOL supervisor will share their perspective and offer a few of the students' strengths in each area as well. And then the meeting should end with suggestions for future professional development and a suggestion of resources to support the teacher candidate. So hopefully this gives you a summary of what your responsibilities are as a clinical teacher in the way of supporting the teacher candidate through the ESOL Practicum project and lesson planning, through observations and a final summative meeting. I quickly wanted to show you the summative meeting form, which is right here. As I noted, it looks just like the observation forms. This is where you'll average out the scores, roughly average. It doesn't need to be exact. And then at the bottom, once again, there are scoring rubrics to support your scoring in that area. So I'd like to take the time once again to thank you. You are very much appreciated. We are grateful to work together with you to create another group of really well-prepared ESOL and bilingual educators. Thank you again, and please reach out anytime if you have questions. My contact information is below, or you're welcome to reach out to your teacher candidate's WOU ESOL supervisor. Thank you so much.